So I think we can start. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming to FEAD event, the Waste Management Association, the European Waste Management Association. I'm Valérie Pleine-Maison. I will be your moderator today, and I will have the task to watch the clock because we have a very intense session. A great thank you, Ms. Weiss, to be with us. We know you're very busy on all the fronts, several fronts. And I will give the opportunity to Peter Court, our president, to introduce the session, and then you'll have the floor, Ms. Weiss. Thank you.
Merci. Merci, Valérie.
Please speak all the time in the microphones, either the table microphones or this one.
I'm speaking.
Hello?
Yes.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you and thank you all for being here today with us in this room and office to discuss the ongoing waste shipment regulation revision. A special welcome also to the participants online from the different members of FEAD all over Europe. A special and warm thank you to Mrs. Pernille-Weiss, for now, for us, the most important member of European Parliament, rapporteur at European Parliament. She is with us today, and also Mr. Jörg Erz, who is the representative of the European Commission. We have a lot of legal discussions in Brussels, but the discussion about the new waste shipment regulation, together with the waste directive, framework directive, are the most important issues for our companies and our sector. The waste management industry forms a fundamental part of our economy, and to really achieve a circular and a more resource-efficient economy, it must be based on comprehensive logistical chains across the European Union and around the world. Facilitating the safety of waste shipments through consistent and effective rules enables the relooping of valuable recycling raw materials back into the value chain. 42 million tons of recycling raw materials were exported intra-EU 27 in 2020, representing 20 billion euros in trade. As facilities are becoming more specialized, this means most members of the European Union are not having on their territory the facilities for all waste streams and treatments, and so waste shipments within the European Union are indispensable. 91% of all waste exports destined for recovery in 2019 were shipped within the borders of EU 27. And allow me to take the small example of a country of the European Union like Malta. The smaller countries which know plastic, no paper, no glass, no steel industry, they have to export all the materials which are collected separately, otherwise there is no recycling. Nevertheless, achieving circularity inextricably relies upon exports beyond the EU borders, where a large fraction of global manufacturing is located. In 2020, the remaining 10%, 27 million tons of raw materials were exported outside the EU 27, representing 10 billion euros in trade. It's therefore essential that operators are allowed to safely export waste beyond EU borders to be integrated as recycling raw materials from the waste management processes in the manufacturing processes, and thus avoiding the use of virgin raw materials. To supervise and control the export, import, and intra-EU shipment of waste, the EU adopted already in 1993 the Waste Shipment Regulation. This regulation was revised in 2006, and it's today under revision based on the proposal made by the Commission in November last year. The revision should bring clarity, simplification, and effectiveness to the waste shipments rules. Ladies and gentlemen, whoever wants to discriminate the shipment of recycling raw materials against the shipment of primary raw materials is not honestly supporting circular economy. A new raw material industry based on recycling and circular economy needs the legal framework for an European industry. This is definitely not a regional or national issue. I'm very pleased to open the floor and hear the views from high representatives of the Commission, the Parliament, and the waste management industry all over Europe. I look forward to a constructive and fruitful exchange. Once again, thank you all for participating. And now the floor is back to Valerie for moderation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Peter. Now we start with the Commission, the European Commission, setting the scene, and then Ms. Weiss will react on that. So please, Mr. Jörg, thank you for being with us. And you have a presentation here, and you have 5 minutes. Yes, yes, and we have here, sorry, you have the screen.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you, Valerie. And thank you for allowing me to step in for my head of unit, Mattia Pellegrini, who sent his apologies. He was last minute prevented from being here. Myself, I'm in DG Environment in the European Commission, the desk officer for the Waste Shipment Regulation, so very closely involved in this proposal. Actually, just came in running in, that's why I was a bit late, because today there is actually a council working party with all member states on exactly on the Waste Shipment Regulation. So maybe next slide. Very brief, I think the scene was set, I think, very properly in the previous speech. But just to give you some numbers on what is happening today as regards waste shipments. The numbers are not exactly the same as what I've just heard from Mr. Kurt, but I think the magnitude is clear enough. There is a lot of waste traveling around in Europe, being shipped to the best destination, hopefully, but unfortunately, there's also still a lot of illegal shipment also happening within the European Union. But what is also happening is that the European Union is a main importer of waste, of course, because we have the solutions in place to deal with the waste. What we at the same time see is that a lot of waste, and the figures that we have for 2020 are 33 million tons of waste are being exported often to countries that are not really ready to cope with the amount of waste or the nature of the waste. So that knowledge, that insight has grown over the past few years, and at a certain point, the Green Deal called upon the Commission to really look into this and to revise the whole waste shipment set of rules to make it more fit for the 21st century, so to make it more modern, to make it easier to ship waste if it is shipped to a proper destination. At the same time, look into this issue of waste being exported to a destination where it is actually mismanaged, and also to see how we can better tackle the illegal activities surrounding waste shipments. Next slide. Yeah, maybe just another set of data to illustrate it. I would move on in the interest of time to the next slide. Here you can see what are the main waste streams that are being exported and imported as far as Eurostat has a view on this. By far, the largest waste stream is iron and steel scrap, but also paper and plastic waste are quite considerable amounts that are being exported from the European Union. Next slide. So as I said, we have been called as a commission to revise the current regulation and to really look into the challenges with that current regulation and the whole context of waste shipments. I think the three objectives I've mentioned. So I would move to the next slide, which is next, please. So we have tabled a proposal for a new regulation. Next slide. And we have followed those three objectives as a kind of lead to really group the measures that we propose. So the first group of measures is focusing on the intra-EU shipments, and that is more related with the procedures that have to be followed by when shipping waste. And we really have focused on modernizing the approach that is today still a paper-based logic. So you fill in papers, you stamp them, you sign them and send them around physically. Whereas we are in the 21st century, we should be able to exchange these informations and documents electronically. And that should, in our view, considerably increase the efficiency of the whole procedural framework. And what we've also proposed is, with that logic in mind, some changes in the procedural steps. Another challenge that we've met when evaluating the regulation is that in member states, not always the same interpretation or implementation is followed. So we have tried to provide for better tools, for more tools to harmonize the way the rules are implemented. An example is the financial guarantee. How is that calculated? We propose that we look into a harmonized calculation method. And a third element that we focus on is to how can we make sure that waste shipments align with the waste hierarchy. So what we have, our approach is to discourage waste going to landfills, to going to an incinerator without any energy recovery. That is very much in line, in our view, with, for instance, the landfill directive that also aims to reduce landfilling overall. So we don't think shipments to landfill should any longer be encouraged, and we even propose to ban them by default. Of course, in some cases, there will still be a need to ship waste that has no other solution than to a landfill. And in those cases, that should be still possible. Next slide. On the export of waste, today we have insufficiently clear rules. We found we have this regulation 1418, well known to many of you, which actually doesn't function. It's not updated sufficiently regularly. And it also does not provide for a strong tool to really enforce exports of waste. So what we have proposed is actually two layers. So a country level layer, making the distinction between non-OECD and OECD. And I know there have been quite some questions on why taking this approach to distinguish between OECD and non-OECD. And that is basically because we are bound by our international commitments towards the Basel Convention, which does make that distinction, but also the OECD decision that is in place that provides for the legal framework under which also the EU and its member states function. So, and one additional element, maybe not linked directly to this more legalistic argument, is that typically non-OECD countries are the more vulnerable developing countries. So we felt that a focus should be kept to protect them. So what we have done is propose first that by default, no waste should be shipped to a non-OECD country outside the EU, unless that country actively comes to us and indicates we are willing to receive some of your waste, and we are also able to do this. And we have provided for a set of conditions to be checked, to be assessed. For instance, is there a permitting system? Is there a waste management system in place? Is there infrastructure in this country? Is there enforcement? Is there a legal framework to support all of this? And so by assessing that, we would come to a list of countries in the non-OECD area where waste would still be in principle allowed to be shipped to. On the side of the OECD countries, We also know that some OECD countries, there are challenges with waste that at the moment is more and more arriving there. And we all know that is much linked to Turkey, which is at the moment the top destination for many EU waste streams when exported. Here we feel that we want to have some kind of a monitoring or safeguard monitoring mechanism in place, so we can enter into a dialogue with a given country, not blocking all waste shipments to the entire OECD area, but really focusing on one or the other OECD country where there might be challenges. And then on a facility level, we still feel the country may be okay to send waste to in general, but on facility level, there still needs to be some assurance that the waste will end up in a proper facility. Is it permitted, but is it also inspected to be compliant with its permit, etc., etc. So there we propose to introduce an obligation for exporters to ensure that the facility they ship waste to is audited, third-party audited. And then a final element on the slide is to make a better distinction between what is a used good and waste. And this is a very specific challenge with waste that is being exported, often under the guise of being a second-hand good, while it is actually something that will get very soon or immediately dumped in the country of destination. Next slide. And then finally, as regards illegal shipments, we at the moment in the current regulation, there is an article on enforcement, which is a bit of a chaos. It's a very long article. It's all in there, but it's not very clear. So that's what we try to do, to clarify the structure of these provisions, but also add some strengthening elements. We think coordination and cooperation among member states is key, and we should strengthen this. And that's why we propose a group of enforcement agencies that can sit together and really set the priorities on an EU level for enforcement of waste shipment rules. And on top of that, we also propose to enhance the competences of our anti-fraud office, OLAF, who already has the competence to and are involved in investigations on waste shipments outside the union, so exports of waste. But of course, the part of the shipment that happens within the union, there we also want to make sure that OLAF can support member states in enforcing the rules. And I think that concludes my
Thank you very much, Jörg. A few minutes to sum up a whole waste shipment regulation revision. That's a challenge. And your challenge now, Ms. Weiss, is to give us your views and reactions on that and your ideas. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you so much for inviting me. I will not use the 5 minutes that I was entitled to be able to do for this introduction, because I really want to hear what you are telling me and also telling the Commission. Thank you so much for what you just took us through to make a common shared ownership to what is actually on the table and in the proposal coming from the Commission. That is very good, I must say that. And also thank you, FEAD, for taking this initiative and also for being so active in the recasting of and also improvement of this regulation. That is very, very needed, because it is many years old. It's very linear, and it's not at all fit for a Europe that is on a transition map towards climate neutrality, but also in acknowledging the very basic fact that we need to be able to go back and live in a more circular way, like our ancestors, they did before EU was invented. So back to basics, and also in a way where we do not destroy what make EU so rich, namely an open economy with a global and open trade between continents and industries. So the equation for me to make happen is actually to create circularity in an open economy. And that is my challenge, but it's also my wish to succeed on that. And we have some obstacles in doing that, given the fact that we in this discourse of the climate change also are facing a lot of fixed ideas about or jumping to conclusions that you save the planet and the environment and the climate by banning a lot of things that are no longer then allowed to do, or we just tax them or make it very, very expensive. That's actually not the logic of an open economy to work like that. And I'm trying to prevent that will be the gutter that we take in this regulation to, because that would really make harm to the possibility that we have as a union to be able, in the way that we are on this planet, how we cooperate with other continents, with both inside and outside of EU, inside, outside of OECD, that we really improve the planet's environmental climate condition. So, of course, we as the union must strive towards an open economy where we collaborate with as many as possible on the highest possible standards, both to provide security and healing for the environment, but also to support our promises made to the Paris Agreement, as well as also the EU climate law. If there is a risk that the political environment goes towards bannings of fractions or countries or regions, I would like to underline that I do my utmost to prevent that, not because I'm a conservative and a liberal, but because I really honestly believe that that is not the way to pursue the aims and also our ethical obligations as Europeans on this planet. So therefore, I'm also very pleased, and I know you know, that we have asked a legal opinion on the legal framework and conditions laid in the WTO rules, because of course we need to be in line with the rules in WTO. But also I'm trying really hard to create as a constructive and evidence-based and also innovative, agile atmosphere between me and the other shadows from the other political groups, so that we stay focused on what are the purpose of this waste shipment regulation, but also what is outside of the scope of this waste shipment regulation when we all try to heal this world and this planet in concerning both environment and climate issues. We have also the Waste Management Directive that are now being implemented in member states, and it is more or less about time to ask how that is going on. Also to prepare ourselves for the needed revisions of that directive. Then we have the Sustainable Products Initiative, going, so to speak, back to the roots of where waste are being made when products are being designed to provide for the industry to make better products that are easier to keep in the loop as resources and not too quickly to end up as waste no one knows exactly what to do about. But also in a way that we can provide an innovative framework of all these regulations and directives that makes it possible for researchers and entrepreneurs within resource and waste management and technologies to come forward also after this year and next year with their new ideas that are even better than we could imagine right now. So that is my approach, and that is also how I will now listen to what you have to tell me more that is not already laid in the very good inputs that I received from FEAD. You sent to me a lot of input for amendments. I have taken on board many of them, but everything can still be improved. Of course, we are in the middle of the negotiation. We have had 2 shadow meetings, a lot of technical meetings, and we are waiting, of course, also the legal opinion on the WTO rules. So I'm all ears and all yours. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you very much. So we are going to divide this session into 2 parts, one on intra-EU waste shipments and the other one on exports outside EU. And on each session, our goal is to show concrete and practical solutions by the waste management industry corresponding to some changes or amendments we'd like to see on the table. So I give the floor to Jurek Zaroff, Entschuldigung, für Prezero, a company which is a member of our German member, BDE. Please, Jurek, I count on your concision. Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, now I can hear myself. Yeah. Dear Ms. Weiss, dear Mr. Arts, thank you for your contribution and the time you're taking to talk to us as the industry about the ongoing revision of the Waste Shipment Regulation. The Waste Shipment Regulation, as we have already heard, is like a crucial piece of legislation, not only for the waste management sector, but in the light of the ongoing transition to a more circular, carbon neutral and zero pollution economy for the whole industry, for the whole value chain, for everyone, basically. I would even go as far as to say that like the revision and the revised waste shipment regulation itself will partly decide about the success or failure of this transition, of this necessary transition. It has the potential to trigger investments from us, from the waste management companies, from recyclers. As Peter Kurt mentioned before, the economy is a European economy. We are living and working in a single market, and this is true also for recyclers and recycling. I think we can all agree, and Ms. Weiss also mentioned it, that the current waste shipment regulation is not fit and doesn't live up to this task, so we need a new one. Way too often we experience that shipments that could go from one member state to another one to be recovered, to be recycled, are hampered by bureaucratic notification proceedings, by competent authorities that take their time, so that it's not worth to send shipments over. So instead of being recovered, those materials are lost for the cycle and are dumped, deposited, getting rid of. One of the main problems is, of course, the slow paper-based proceeding. The goal of this revision should actually be, from our point of view, that a shipment of waste for recycling from Aachen to Maastricht shouldn't take longer than a shipment from Aachen to Berlin, which is 600 kilometers further of a distance. I think we could all see how the eco-balance would look for the transport. Also, if maybe looking at new waste streams where recycling quotas will be maybe in place, thinking about construction waste, for example. So I think we all agree that we need a strengthened single market for meeting the hopefully or surely increasing demand for secondary raw materials in Europe. I think this is why, and I guess I can speak for the whole waste management industry, we are welcoming all the three main points that Jörg was presenting, all the objectives of the revision. But maybe the objectives are the same, but the opinion how to achieve them, not always so. So we hope, however, that the final legal text will reflect some of the concerns that we have already expressed in writing, and Ms. Weiss, you already said you took a lot of them on board in your report, and I could also see that other MEPs tabled very good amendments in our point of view. I would just bring two very short examples of problems that we see in the proposal, or challenges, not problems, in the proposal of the Commission. The first one would be in Article 18, like the electronic data interchange that we welcome very much for the notification procedure. So bringing the notification proceeding in the 21st century. But this is also foreseen now to be used for the Annex 7 procedure, for the green listed waste. But it lacks flexibility in the proposal on when the necessary data needs to be provided. Normally the Annex 7 procedure does not require approval, it's just an information procedure. So we think that the data should not be required to be put in the system latest 1 day in advance before the shipment starts, because it's barely possible at that time to already know the weight of the transport and maybe not even the carrier, as it's very spontaneous sometimes who is actually driving the shipment, which lorry to use. I mean, this is also a thing that will even increase with digitalization of freight. A second short point I would like to make is about the provisions in Article 21 of the proposal, where it's basically requiring the competent authorities to publish all the data they receive from those Annex 7 procedures and from the notification process that they received in the electronic data interchange, except where this is forbidden by EU or member state law. I think this is quite a wide proposal of what to publish, and has definitely the potential to also maybe infringe some business secrets, and also is not very good for a harmonized approach if there is like the member states law that is regulating what to publish or not. So maybe it would be better with a positive list which things should be published or not. And the last point, just to sum up, we already heard about the Waste Framework Directive. If we could wish for one thing that is very crucial for the functioning single market, this is harmonization. I think more or less everybody would agree that common EU end of waste criteria would be a thing that would make life much easier for waste management companies. Thank you.
Now we rush to the next from MGG Polymers, also a member of FEAD, our Austrian member, about the key importance of pre-consent facilities and improvement of the process of pre-consent facilities.
Thank you very much.
You have the floor for not 10 minutes.
No, it's 8.
Yeah.
You know, and Jörg Arts knows very well that I can talk about pre-consents for afternoons. So please fasten your seatbelts. Pre-consents, I think, you know, one of the good things in the proposals is that pre-consents fast tracks do get a lot of more emphasis. And I'd like to tell you a little bit more about it, because I think this is where the crucial part is, how to improve the waste shipments for the future. Now, to tell you, oh, this is the wrong side. My background is in plastics recycling, and particularly plastics recycling from electronics. You see a pile of plastics on this picture. We receive 55,000 tons of this material. 3/4 of it is imported. Now, what we do with it, we do high-tech separations, we get the different plastics out of it, we extrude it, blend it. You know, I will not be able to tell you a lot in this presentation, but by the end of it, we do lab analysis and we get a wonderful product that is used by the electronics industry to make coffee makers, vacuum cleaners, and we even have a wonderful modem made with an innovation of PC ABS, which is very, very new. Now, what is the problem? The problem is the following. 3/4 of our raw materials are coming in. During the crisis of Corona, we had a lot of e-waste plastics coming in. We are now post-crisis. And suddenly we saw the amount of plastics coming in reducing. We tried to get new suppliers on board from outside our country, Austria. And it takes us an average of 4 months to get one single supplier on board. Now, what we do is we produce products, and these products go to the high-tech industry. Try to tell a high-tech industry that we cannot deliver because our raw materials have stopped because of notifications. You know, this is where the fundamental problem lies, and this needs to be addressed urgently if Europe wants to move towards a circular economy. Now, let me share my dreams with you. You know, my dreams is a Europe that has a circular economy in which we save resources, we save huge amounts of energy, which we do, and CO2, and at the same time work towards a non-toxic environment where we work towards conformity with standards, conformity with legal legislation. I have another dream, and that is that finally authorities get the time to work on true illegal exports. Right now, I see so many authorities that are just overwhelmed with an ever-increasing amount of notifications. They don't get through anymore. They don't even recognize the receipt of a notification anymore because the pile is so big. But at the same time, many of these competent authorities, when people leave, don't replace them. So we are working in a problematic environment. At the same time, we would like to see that these people that are working on notifications can work with efficient business processes to make sure that these notifications come through. We have a dream. We have a dream that notifications indeed go to us faster. And when we did a survey back in 2016 at ERA, we came to the conclusion that it doesn't really work. And we thought of something that I remember from my times in the electronics world, where the WTO, the World Trade Organization, worked on green lanes to authorized economic operators. Now, the European Union had long time on the website that fast-track notifications, pre-consent, should be through in 1 week. Now, when we did the survey in 2016, we came to the conclusion that many competent authorities simply do not recognize this concept. Notifications take as long as they did for any other notification. Yeah, and many authorities didn't even recognize Article 14. So something needed to happen. And what we did is we created a working group. And that was during the Dutch presidency, where we did a Green Deal, where the Dutch did a Green Deal. And it was the International Green Deal Resources Roundabout. And we created this working group. Now you can even see Jörg in this picture, 2017, where we started to work. Now what we did is we sat around the table with competent authorities and discussed what business processes could work to make notifications quicker. So we had competent authorities on board, we had companies on board, associations, ERIC, ERA were both there, and we started to discuss how we could make this work, and then we tried it out in a trial. Now, the trial showed something interesting. Where the average notification throughput is 4 months, with peaks up to 4 years, mind you, yeah, we managed to get this notification through within 1 month. We weren't able to do it within 1 week. And I don't think 1 week is a reasonable expectation. But anywhere between 1 week and 1 month is already quite a relief. It turned to be an eye-opener, and we shared the paper with the Commission, and I'm really pleased to see that so many of the proposals that we made have been indeed in the proposals of the Commission. However, there are some thoughts that I wanted to share with you. Long pre-consents make sense. I'll tell you why. We are now in the second round of pre-consented facility. We are now applying for the second round. Mind you, if you get close to the end of the first pre-consent, many authorities say, oh, you know, your pre-consent runs only until September 22. So we don't give you a notification for any longer than September 22. So my thought is, you know, why would we have any validity date? Why would that be necessary? That's one thought. Any company that deals with good technology recycling and has a proper history should be able to get a pre-consent status. The throughput time of notifications is the most important part of it. Again, 1 week would be a dream. I don't think that would be realistic, but anywhere between 1 week and a month would be fine. Now, in order to get there, there are a few things that we need to put in mind. You know, we need to look at the processes that currently are very, very different between competent authorities. Each competent authority seems to define their own processes. Why do we need a complete full technical dossier for every single notification for a place where we know that everything is being treated properly? Why is there not a faster and better alternative to the current financial guarantee? And Jörg already mentioned it. There's work being done. The question that I ask is, if you need a financial guarantee in 1 on 10,000 cases, and if you know that 1 billion euro is being immobilized in terms of capital for pre-consented facilities, why do we need a financial guarantee? Normal treatment companies that trade primary raw materials don't have financial guarantees. Why would a waste treatment company need that? So particularly for pre-consent, I do still question the need of a financial guarantee. Yeah, it's an enormous amount of work. We need to have a long period of discussions to get it done. And then we have different financial means to get the financial guarantee. We need to have, for instance, covers of multiple notifications for these financial guarantees as a solution. Why do we need a transit approval for pre-consent? Wouldn't it be much better if we do a transit information procedure, particularly for pre-consent? Yeah, and I think the most important part of it, today even, many competent authorities do not recognize pre-consent. The most critical part of this is that every single competent authority in Europe does recognize and implements the rules for pre-consent. I think these are the thoughts that I wanted to bring across in these 8 minutes, and I hope I managed to get into 8 minutes. But let's not forget, circular economy, wastes are resources, urban ores, you know, and these wastes for raw materials should move in the pace of business and not in the pace of administration. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chris. I'm going to share with you a few remarks, special remarks on mixed municipal waste, very briefly. The Commission has proposed to ban to ship for disposal. We think, as the operators of the overall waste management chain, that in some exceptional and emergency cases, it should be kept possible to ship for disposal. I'll give you an example. Last year, with the floods in Belgium, nearly 1 million tons of household waste were abandoned along the highways. What do you do with them? This is the figure. So if there is not the existing capacity and you have to cross the border, this is an exceptional situation, an emergency case. The existing Article 11 already foresees that waste cannot be disposed of in a technically feasible and economically viable manner in the country where it was generated. That is one of the conditions. So if you have no other solution, you should be able to ship for disposal. This was mentioned by some member states during the council, smaller member states having not all the capacities. This would be an exception, but it's needed for the safety of all waste management operation that this remains possible under criteria, as I mentioned. I think this is a short, brief, and clear message, allowing us to move to the next point. I give the floor to Isabelle Conche, who has special remarks on hazardous waste. And I would like to ask you, Isabelle, to be very, very short because we are behind schedule. The best messages are the shortest one. Thank you.
Thank you, Valérie. Please, next slide. Just to show you the specificity of hazardous waste treatment. And first of all, I want to describe very briefly the context of our job. First of all, even if we have to take into account the national proximity and the national sufficiency of each country, hazardous waste treatment has more to be considered at the European levels. Due to the fact that hazardous waste treatment are very adapted to the industry needs and also to the industry locations. And in addition, hazardous waste are very diversified as their compositions, and they need a very specific treatment. Second point I want to develop is that hazardous waste treatment operators are very satisfied with the fact that the Waste Shipment Regulation review remain a procedural text with a strict and clear provisions for the shipment of hazardous waste. It was very important for us. The third thing I want to show you is the fact that already, because it's the international regulation, hazardous waste management operator already apply an export ban outside the European Union on the EFTA country, except for we, because it's another type of procedure of treatment. And the fourth point is about the fact that, in fact, European shipment for disposal of hazardous waste are very limited, less than 10% of the total of the hazardous waste produced in Europe. Next slide, please. What are the key things for hazardous waste management? Just to recall you that characterization of hazardous waste is very important for us to define the best treatment in the best facility. In addition, traceability is also a key rules, because we need to know perfectly all the shipment of the waste. Third thing is we have to apply also dedicated transport requirements for dangerous goods, because hazardous waste are often dangerous. And then the treatment, all the hazardous waste treatment facility need a waste permit and also IED permits, and have to apply the waste treatment rate on the incineration rate. And in some time, you have also some facility which could be under the Seveso regulations. So a very strict regulation framework for our facilities. Next slide. What I want to see with the slides is that we are conscious that it's very important to speak about non-hazardous waste and export ban, and I understand that it's very necessary to discuss, but we have the feeling as hazardous waste treatment operator that all this discussion could hamper any discussion we could have on how to improve hazardous waste shipment in the philosophy of the new shipment regulations. And this is very important for us, that you don't forget that hazardous waste treatment needs very specificity. Please, next slide. And for the next slide, just to propose you an example about Article 11. As I previously said, that European transfer in Europe are very limited, but very necessary, because in some cases, and mainly for disposal operations, you have very specific waste, pop waste, PCB waste, on very high chlorine or halogenate waste, which the only type of treatment is disposal in incinerations, in dedicated incineration. So we need to have transfer and shipment for disposal under the qualification of disposal. And in addition, I previously told you that the European network of hazardous waste facility is a network and is adequate for answering the European-wide demand of the industry. But on the other hand, there are no technical and economical viability to build capacity in every member state, and in particular in the smaller one. Is a reason why, when we consider Article 11, we need to take into consideration the specificity of hazardous waste, and the world of the hazardous waste operators is currently working to propose some adaptation to take into consideration our works. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Isabelle, from our French member of FNAD. Now I give the floor to our Norwegian member, Gunnar Rini, on opportunities and limitations resulting from multilateral agreement. You have less than 3 minutes.
Okay. Thanks a lot. I'll be very brief. My name is Gunnar Rini, and I work for the Federation of Norwegian Industries within the field of recycling. And just to build on what was just being said, it's simply not feasible for all countries to have a wide range of all kinds of treatment capacities for all types of waste. So the answer, one of the answers to this, is to allow for cooperation between neighboring countries and multilateral agreements. And this is probably particularly relevant for specific types of hazardous waste for disposal, where there doesn't exist any recycling capacity maybe, and it's just sensible to have a certain degree of cooperation and specialization between neighboring countries when it comes to securing an efficient and sound treatment of waste, and maybe particular hazardous waste. So next slide, please. So we believe that Ms. Weiss' proposals for amendments and also other proposals for amendments to the regulation are very positive. This dividing of the scope from bilateral to multilateral agreements is very appreciated from our side. It makes sense to have a cooperation between neighboring countries on this. And we believe also the provision that are proposed to as maybe safeguarding provisions to secure the priorities of the waste hierarchy, and also the principles of proximity and self-sufficiency, and also securing that the BAT is BAT standards are taken into account, are very positive, and also that is proposed that it should be demonstrated that these agreements does not lead to any harmful market fragmentations. So our intention is not to create any loopholes. We know that this has been a concern that such agreements might create loopholes. This is not the intention at all. It's just to have a safe and sound cooperation on specific types of hazardous waste that needs to go to specific treatment facilities. So all in all, we think that the Parliament are taking this in a positive direction. We have some suggestions for further improvements, and that's maybe just for legal clarity. When it comes to such agreements, I don't think that terms like exceptional cases and border areas, I don't know exactly what that is. It's very unclear for us. And I think maybe it's enough to just rely on that these agreements should be an alternative in cases where the geographical and demographical situation warrants this step. Also, that's clear enough for me. I think that makes sense. And also, it should also maybe be sufficient to require that waste is shipped to the nearest suitable facility. We don't have to go into terms like border areas. Is that 1 kilometer? Is it 10? Is it more? I don't know. And in addition to the above mentioned safeguard provisions proposed by Ms. Weiss and others, I think that's enough to secure that we don't create loopholes, but we just secure a good, safe and sound cooperation between member states. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Gunnar. Before we move to the other section, exports outside the EU, have any of you, Mr. Weiss or Mr. Arts, any remark or something you would like to express? Because with the other section, we're going to be also in a hurry. So in the intra-EU, if you wish to express something, otherwise we move to the other section. Everything here.
I don't want to waste your time, but I would like to ask for one thing, and that is all your very good arguments. I don't disagree to any one of them, but please help me to articulate that if your proposals are not accepted and put into the recast of the regulation, what does the environment and the climate and the European economy then lose? Be very precise on that, because the counter argument will always be something about either protectionism or the opposite, or that you are advocating for loopholes. I mean, that is the lingo bingo also politically. So you need to help me to prove what does the next generation lose of benefits for the environment and the climate if your proposals are not taking on board. Simple as that.
Excellent remark. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And I can just concur with what Ms. Weiss just said. That's the basis for any good amendment, and we are from our side very open for improvement. But then of course it needs to be based on good evidence that this is really leading to improvements. And just one thing I picked up from Ms. Conche's intervention, and which we very much agree. We also see that there is often a political focus on some waste streams, and plastic waste is the most known. And this is a major challenge, and the international community is also working on plastics in general, not only the waste issue, but the whole life cycle of plastics. So that is important, no question about that. But with this waste shipment regulation, we want to provide with a framework that deals with all waste and all waste shipments, and that can protect the environment and public health from all waste, not only from plastic waste. And that is something to keep in mind, we think, to keep the horizon as broad as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we move to the other section. Maybe I call Baudouin on stage because he's going to speak after my very brief introduction. And to be very clear, outside export waste, outside European Union, to take your point, Mr. Weiss, it's about bans. Bans do not create a circular economy. Circular economy is created by other measures, such as managed recycled content. Bans do not avoid misdeclarations and smuggling of waste for used goods. Bans do not necessarily prevent criminal operators for still operating in a criminal way. So we are legal operators, and we are the ones who would be banned. So the Waste Shipment Regulation should be the legal shipment for safe practices. Maybe it's less easy to do than a pure ban. Also, the Basel Convention prohibits already the export of hazardous waste to non-EU countries, and there is no problem with that. So it's not only being in an open economy, it's what the bans will not do. So there are proposals at the Parliament, including some amendments of yours, with a differentiated approach, which we support. Instead of this proposal by the Commission of list of countries accepting imports, there is an alternative way to consider restricted or non-restricted flow. So we would like to have some remarks by our colleague Baudouin, who was a few time ago the chair of our shipment committee. So he knows very well this subject. And he's from the Belgian member d'Union, and he would like to say something about this differentiated approach, restricted, non-restricted flows. Thank you, Baudouin. Yeah.
Voilà. Thank you. Well, I don't want to come here into details because we are, of course, in a process of negotiation now and developing of an alternative and final document. Of course, we have seen with your task that the existing regulation 1418 is a heavy document, and it's not in line with the expectation of the waste management on an efficient way, because it takes too much time to get the approval of the countries, and certainly when they have to update their position or a new one, it takes too much time to update the regulation itself. So we are at FEAD level in favor of supporting a waste-specific stream approach, where instead of asking each country to specify which kind of waste they can accept, that we put a list of waste to be considered for export or export ban in function of the characteristics and specification. And without taking today a final position on it, there are in the proposed amendments by Mrs. Bentley, but also by you, Mrs. Rice, to have a very limited list of waste for which a ban would apply, except in case of pre-treatment and what we call raw material from recovery. Or the alternative would be, in fact, to ask for all waste, let's say all green listed waste, also a mandatory pre-treatment. Otherwise, there would be a ban for export also to non-EU countries. That's a position where we are now, to say that's the good focus now, to put the discussion on this kind of list, specific list approach, and to see in how far the discussion will lead to a limited list or to a large list. We take also into consideration, of course, the decision taken now at the international level. You know, the mixed plastic waste are now on a special status. And last week there was a quite similar decision on the electronic waste, on the WEEE. Of course, it can help if we have an alignment between European and international rules to avoid having, instead of 2 systems, having 3 systems, which makes the situation even more complex. Thank you.
Thank you, Baudouin. Now welcome Monica Harting-Pfeiffer from the company Remondis, from our German member BDE, and she joins online. And she's going to talk about the case of plastics. Thank you, Monica.
Hi, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, the floor is yours.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me. I'll be really brief because I know we're short on time. So I'm here today as a plastic expert, since we in Remondis have over 180,000 tons of installed capacity for plastic recycling in several different facilities for plastics recycling, because plastics is not just one type of waste stream, but it's very complex in itself. So there's many different plastic types that need to each go to a different facility to be treated and to be transformed in a material that can be reused. So what I would try to say today is that we have been challenged with the new regulation of the Basel Convention of B3011 just last year in 2021. It came to be effective on the 1st of January, and then it took it almost a year to find a common interpretation of what that meant as of to thresholds of what shipments would be allowed to have as contaminants for these plastic wastes. So this regulation is just about 8 months old, let's say, with the interpretation, and we haven't even had a chance to comply with that. And now there's a new set of rules that is coming. So what we need as an industry is to have a safe environment for our investments in, for example, sorting, and that we have a chance to comply with the legal framework, and that we are allowed to work with our partners even outside of the EU, if that makes sense, if they are up to our standards, which I totally agree, but not discriminate against those recyclers that are part of our circularity and of our material streams, and not add political obstacles for them to be part of our system. I think that we should not combat illegal shipments by adding more complexity for those companies that do comply with the legal framework. And so we need business relationships that are resilient to political volatility abroad as well, because not every country outside of the EU is as stable as, fortunately, we are inside the EU. Thank you so much. I hope I was brief enough.
Thank you, Monica. You were not only brief, but also very clear. Thank you very much. Now we have the next point, which is how to make it safe and reliable when exporting. And that's all about audit schemes that tend to be more and more developed now. And we have a very good example showed by Xavier Loire from Valipac, which is the EPR scheme in Belgium, and he will explain how it works with the certified procedure they have put in place. Thank you, Xavier. You have 10 minutes or less. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm not here to discuss about the proposal. I'm just here to present and to share my experience, because the context is changing. My job is to make sure that our members are in line with, are working according to the regulation. So maybe next slide. Valipack is the only EPR organization in Europe dealing with commercial and industrial packaging waste. We are working for 25 years now, compliant with the EU regulation, the Belgian legislation, but trying to take into consideration the next evolution. So it's quite a challenge to anticipate the movement and the next steps in the change in the global context. But at the moment we are reaching high recycling targets, and that's the objective we have to comply. And we are doing it at the average cost of 10.6 euro per ton for the industry. So it's very cheap for the industry, for the Belgian industry, to reach the targets. We receive accreditation period of 5 years. The Valipack system is quite simple. We collect information from different parties. You can go to the next slides. Because we receive information from our 7,000 members, producer, brand owners, giving us information regarding the quantities of packaging they put on the Belgian market. But at the same side, on the other side, we collect information from the waste management company. Next. Yeah. And so we are working with 220 waste management companies. You know them, Remondis, Suez, Veolia, these kind of players are working, but in total 220 companies giving us on monthly basis information regarding the quantities of industrial packaging waste they collect from the Belgian clients and send to the recycling. So we compare the two information, but on the market with recycling, and we report information to the Belgian authorities. At the same time, we have an extra job, because we do not only collect the information, but we try to influence the decision at the unpackers. Those companies receiving the package with the packaging, we try to promote the selective collection at sources, paying some financial incentive to these 42,000 companies. All in all, we are able to reach the legal target defined by Belgian authorities. For instance, the Belgian target, we have to reach 80% for wood. We have to reach, and we reach 91%. For plastic, we have to reach 50%. At the moment, we are able to reach 62%. So in a nutshell. But it was quite simple. And it was very linear approach. We want to go, so last couple of years, we adapted the system in order to be able to implement the circular vision. Because at the moment, we only had 3 parties playing with, working with Valipack, the brand owners, the packaging responsible, the unpackers, and the waste management companies. But we need more information from the traders, from the recycling facilities. And if we want to make it circular, we need information also from the packaging producers. That's the reason why we developed a new system, a new circular approach, identifying 4 major challenges for the 5 next years. We need to promote the selective collection at sources. That's business as usual, but we need to enhance traceability and to guarantee the recycling. We need to stimulate the local recycling, because we know at a certain moment, if we want to make it circular, we need the short distance and the local dimension. And we need to increase the circularity. So improve, to stimulate the brand owners or members to use at least packaging with a certain percentage of recycled content. I will focus in the next slide on the traceability and the guarantee of recycling. It's quite a challenge, because if I take an example of the plastics, we are at the moment reporting 63.2 kilotons of plastic recycled, from which 30% is recycled straight from the waste management company to the recycling facility. In the other 70%, we have an intermediaries, a trader, the parties, taking care of the sorting, taking care of the transport, taking care of all different steps in the recycling chain. But if we only focus on the reporting of the waste management company, we cannot identify the final destination. So we need more collaboration all along the value chain. for, in this case, 70% of the total volume. And it complies also with the new expectation from the Belgian authorities, because the Belgian authorities said, when we talk about trading, Valipack, please certify by certification that 90% of the tonnage, the volume sent into recycling, has been correctly and according to the European expectation recycled. So to give an answer to the first challenge, we need to identify the final destination for 70% of our volume. That's the reason why we make a contract with the traders starting in 2019. So it was a long journey, but at the end we have been able to reach 90% traceability, 97% traceability in 2020, and for 2021 we reached 99% of the volume identified with a final destination. We will reach the 100% in 2022, I can assure you. But it gives us a possibility also to see and to identify major evolution in the trading, saying that for the Belgian industrial packaging waste, the local recycling in Europe has increased with 1%, and the distinction between Turkey and Asia, we have some movement, but it's also due to the specific situation in Turkey in 2021. So with the contract of traders, we have been able to answer the first challenge to identify the final destination. The next challenge is related to the certification, because the Belgian authorities ask us to prove that it has been totally recycled by the identified recycling facilities, but also it has been recycled according to the broadly equivalent condition, the standard defined by Europe. But at the same time, we decided to anticipate a little bit the new expectation from Europe, and that's the reason why we based our audits, the audits we realized, on the new evaluation criteria defined by the proposal and extent of the Waste Shipment Regulation. So it is a quite complete audit scheme, and we have been able to execute 11 audits in 2021. In 2022, we want to execute 50 extra audits in order to be able to reach the 50% recycling of the total volume, and to reach us towards the 90% operational compliance of certification of the volume in 2024. All in all, my message here: traceability is possible if we collaborate, if we are transparent. That's the main issue, and thanks to the collaboration with the traders, but also with collaboration with the waste management company, we've been able to reach 99% traceability. For the audit of the recycling facilities outside Europe, it's a challenge. It's quite ambitious, but we will do it. We will reach it. But when we had identified a recycling facility in Vietnam, in Malaysia, in Turkey, they do not only recycle Belgian waste. They do not recycle only Belgian packaging waste. They're also active with material coming from all over the world. So that's the reason why we are ready to share our experience, and we are expecting some more general movement from Europe, just to be sure that we do not repeat this kind of audit for every member state and for every waste management company. So at the same time, the message also is we want to promote the circular economy and local recycling. And so my presentation today focused on the traceability and also on the operation compliance, but Valipack also promotes the local recycling by giving extra financial incentive for the waste management company trader in order to stimulate them to use the recycling facilities, the existing recycling facilities in Belgium, Europe. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Xavier. And now we have Katie Oli from SWEEP, the Shipment of Waste Enforcement Action Project, which is a project funded by the European Union for 4 minutes, and she will explain us some figures and statistics about waste exports. It's a very interesting organization giving us some views online on what's happening on the waste shipment side outside European Union. So Katie, the floor is yours online.
Thank you very much. if you can hear me, sorry, I have quite a poor internet connection. So thanks so much to FEAD for inviting me. It's nice to back with you. I worked alongside you 20 years ago, so thank you for allowing me back in the room. So today, as Valerie explained, I'm here representing a life project for which Impel, I'm sure most of you will know what Impel is. It's the organisation that looks after the implementation of European environmental law for its members, and I'm the project leader for the Shipments of Waste Enforcement Action project, and part of the project involves liaising with industry to increase compliance by reducing some of the illegal shipments that we see as regulated by providing guidance and assistance. So with the project itself, we have a large data set which covers over 62,000 inspections since we started the project in the middle of 2018. And we can see the wastes that are commonly shipped in violation of the Waste Shipment Regulation, and I'll give these in order quickly, are plastic, end-of-life vehicles, paper, e-waste and metals. And the locations of these are generally within the EU for metals, to Asia for plastics and papers, unsurprisingly e-waste and end-of-life vehicles to Africa, and a very low percentage, under 1%, to the Americas. And in the last 2 years, we've seen 26.5% of waste go in contravention to the Basel Convention ban to non-OECD countries. And since the beginning of this year, that is up to 41% of violations, so go outside the OECD. So that, I think that's quite concerning, and we've yet to bottom out why that might be the case, but it's probably because, and that relates to something that Jörg said, the focus that authorities now have on plastic wastes and the plastic waste amendments that came in through the Basel Convention in 2019 that came into effect at the beginning of last year. The other aspects that we offer through the Shipments of Waste Enforcement Action project are training to customs officers, judges, prosecutors, the competent authorities themselves, and of course the guidance that I mentioned to industry, reporting tools for the inspectors to make everything more slick and harmonised, and the exchanging of intelligence. One of our key deliverables for the project was to produce 2 policy papers. One of these we produced last year and provided to the Commission. We hope it fed through and was useful on the revision of the Waste Shipment Regulation, and it was very much from an enforcer's point of view. So we provided some advice on what we'd seen over the years on jurisdiction issues, shipments of green listed waste to non-OECD countries, and on enforcement more generally. Just to give a few remarks on the Commission's proposals, we're obviously very pleased to see that enforcement has been pushed to the fore, and that the guddle, as is a Scottish word, of Article 50 has been straightened out somewhat, and it's been taken quite seriously in the amendment. We're pleased to see that some of the jurisdiction amendments have been included, and also that the submission of Annex 7 information has been included, and that this streamlining of data, and especially with the notification proposals that have been included. I think that can only help industry and regulators alike. I would say, just briefly, having spoken with industry representatives and also a few colleagues on the EP amendments on the Waste Shipment Regulations, don't want to set any horses running, but we do have a few concerns on the enforceability of some of the amendments. So we would have concerns on officers when they're looking at a container, say, you know, what is plausible evidence? We have to prove that something would perhaps cause serious harm to the environment and human health in the country of destination. How exactly do we do that at the doorside of a container? You know, our aim is very much to stop an illegal shipment before it leaves Europe. How do we find this evidence and prove it? We're far more, you know, we're far more au fait with the procedures we have, and that we've had embedded through case law about looking at the waste stream itself on the shores of Europe before it leaves, and not have to consider the facility it's traveling to in the country of destination. So I think to ensure a level playing field for legitimate business within Europe, we need to make sure that everything is as enforceable as possible to minimize delays, because we all know that, you know, once a container is put on hold, expenses start to rack up. The shipping industry is absolutely merciless when it comes to passing on costs. You know, if a container stopped overnight, that'll be €150 in terms of you know, moving it to the examination area and demurrage costs, and those costs are immediately passed on to the booking agent, who will seek to pass it on to the booking party. So I think we need to make sure that any changes that are made, you know, are very easy for both industry and officers alike to, you know, to know what we're doing straight from the get-go. So those would be my immediate remarks on the amendments and the proposal as it stands. So thanks very much for listening to me and giving me time for that short intervention. I'm very happy to pass on any additional details and data as might be useful to you. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Katie. Now we have a few minutes left, but not a lot for question and answer, if there is a good question, because now we also have the conclusion. So if you have an emergency question, something you really would like to ask, but otherwise I give the floor to, yes. Please open the mic, otherwise we can't.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Julianne Adams from the European Electronics Recycling Association. And we support, along with EBRA, the European Batteries Recyclers Association, the majority, if not all, of the proposals that you've put forward. There are a few things that we would like you to urge to consider to add. Number one, to Articles 5 and 7, when considering the competent authorities, and we very much welcome the guidance so that they all sing from the same hymn sheet, but also the fees that they all charge. A lot of them charge different fees with no justification or based on any kind of risk. You know, it's just a fee, and so it's actually a income stream for some of the local authority, the competent authorities. So there should be guidance as to what they can charge and how much and for what reason. So that's very important. In terms of auditing overseas, that's very important to our members, because our members work very hard at getting permits, at training their staff, at ensuring environmental and health and safety is ensured. And so it should be equivalent. And so any overseas auditing requirement has to meet the same permitting levels. It's no good saying they need a permit, because you can get any kind of permit you want in some countries, you know, within a very short period of time. The conditions need to be the same, and obviously quality standards, which is coming in for we, is a different thing, but it's certainly very, very important. In terms of exports, sorry, I'm talking very fast. In terms of exports, whole electrical equipment should be banned outside of the EU, and then that solves a lot of the loopholes, because it can be stated that it's going for overseas treatment, which it isn't, certainly not to equivalent standards. If it's partially treated or treated components from electronic components. That's easy for officers to understand. You know, they can open a container, they can't see it full of printers or monitors, you know, they can see it through the component parts. So that would help to justify that as well. Thank you. Sorry, I'm very fast.
I'm not sure you expect an answer. Okay, interesting points. So maybe I think we should, it's a bit frustrating. Hi, Emmanuel, yeah. Please be very, please the mic.
Yeah, I think it's indeed, I know time is running, but I really want to stress the absolute importance to ensure that we make shipments within the EU much easier than what they are today, without closing the frontiers for green listed waste, which are classified as waste, despite the fact that we speak mostly about raw materials from recycling, and to have a differentiated approach among waste streams. Because one of the key difficulty with the revision of the Waste Shipment Regulation is the fact that basically we are putting the same rules for very different waste streams, which are having very different types of market failures as well. And this is where a differentiated approach is so essential. And this is why, as Zurich, we represent all the waste streams, and we don't have any issue in saying that e-waste should not be exported, because we know that e-waste, when they go to Africa, are not going, it's not a question, it's not a mystery, are not going to be treated alike. It's the same with end-of-life vehicles. But on the other hand, when we have raw materials from recycling which are meeting quality specifications, despite being still classified as a waste because of the lack of end-of-waste criteria, or because they are classified as a waste by the authorities, should not be forbidden from being exported outside the EU. Because as a recycling industry, we need, even if we are recycling the majority of the waste to stay in Europe, we need to have access to international markets to stay competitive, to continue saving CO2, to continue being able to be the most resource efficient industry, to strive and to develop. And so that was a remark more than a question, but it was trying to connect the dots on the different things that have been said by different speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel. I think it's time for you to have closing remarks, Ms. Weiss, otherwise you'll be late for your next appointment. I give also the floor next to Jörg after you.
Yes, I will be very quickly. I have the Pakistan ambassador to EU to talk to before I go to the Envy committee meeting where the Czech Minister of Environment is meeting us, and where I exactly is going to ask him, her, I guess it's a her, about the approach to the upcoming trilogue on this regulation, because it's very, very important also that we know that the Commission is online with the ambitions that are put forward by the Commission, but also the ambitions that are in my and my colleagues' amendments. Yes, we want to harmonize the single market. And also, yes, I count on your support to help the countries, big or small, but mostly also many of the big in Europe. And also some of the industries who are actually working against a harmonized single market because of the convenience for their own industry. And we cannot let that happen now, where we are in the environmental and climate situation. Also because I need that not to be a troublemaker. In a very, very ambitious, but also very, very needed recast that opens up still for having an open economy with circularity. I'm not afraid that we will export environmental challenges and problems to the third world, but we need, in order to help the third world to improve on environment and climate standards, to be able to cooperate with us. That goes for notification, that goes for a swift and smooth inclusion also of the digital tools that can help us also to create the regional ecosystems of circularity. because everybody sometimes on some spectrum of the political landscape are afraid that we will continue linearity and just export our problems that then not will be solved. What I hear though from industry that are cooperating with the internationally is that their technologies provide for local and regional ecosystems to grow. That also improves the possibility for other industries that are a part of the waste and resource ecosystem to grow in third countries. And that is exactly the movement that the EU can do, both to benefit ourselves and our economic and technology competitiveness, but also to make this world go in a direction of more peace, more value for many more people. Thank you so much for your contributions. And my office is always open for both questions, good ideas, but especially also please take note of what I said between the intra and the extra. Do provide as much as examples and good proposals, explanations that if your amendments and hopes for this recast is not met, what will the environment and the climate then lose and the next generation? It's not about your own business. That will, of course, be a part of your argument. I'm not scared about that, but let's work together to improve that. Thank you so much. And then I will rush to Pakistan.
I give the floor for a few seconds to Jörg if he has anything to add from the Commission, and then Peter to conclude. Thank you.
Yeah, not much that. I think it was very eloquently addressed by Mrs. Weiss. And from our side, we are very happy with such a rapporteur, very eager to work on this file. And yes, please do express also from our side, we want to advance with this file. And we are working with the Czech colleagues, we are working with the member states. So yeah, from our side, we think this is an urgent file, this is an important file. And we've been listening in the preparation to many of you. I'm sure you remember even specific conversations, meetings. And we've tried to take into account many of the concerns that were expressed. But of course, you have to see, we have to keep a balance. And we still believe we have put quite a balanced proposal on the table, not banning, but protecting at the same time, etc. So just on that, I leave to that. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thanks all of the participants of our panels, and also to you, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me some short remarks at the end. First is the horrible pictures of plastic pollution worldwide should increase the activities to build up waste management and circular economy worldwide. It's not an argument to hamper recycling in Europe or elsewhere. Second, you can't fight illegal activities within the union or out of the union by strengthening more and more the provisions of the regulation. You only end up in a lot of bureaucracy. Increase the controls. That is the only way to fight illegal activities. The job of our companies, of the waste management in the circular economy, is to deliver raw materials to the industry, as many and as good as possible. That means sometimes we need not the nearest facility, but the best for the raw materials. FEAD welcomes the proposal of the Commission in principle. However, there are provisions which have to be improved, the fast tracks, the exports from the EU, to name it. Here we count on Parliament and Council. Mrs. Weiss, you asked for giving you reasons to justify our requirements. We have to deliver more details and arguments and facts, that's for sure. But believe me, the three main reasons for our requirements are: we save energy, we reduce CO2 emissions, we stabilize the supply of raw materials. The arguments for circular economy are the arguments for a better waste shipment regulation. And so again, thanks for your efforts, your activities. We support you wherever possible. Thanks to all of you to making it possible to come to this afternoon. and the FEAD conference. Thanks for everyone who was engaged in preparing it. Once again, thank you, all of you, and have a nice and good afternoon now. Thank you.